1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true. All lives.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to another edition of Star Wars Reactions. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi barking in the background. I'm on doggy duty. So let's get this going and have some fun. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me, as always, is the fabulous David Motters. David, brother, how's it going?
It's going, brother. I'm ready to react, and looking forward to wrapping up our coverage of season 1 of Andor. So ready to go, man.
Absolutely. We're gonna have so much fun discussing these last 2 episodes of Andor. I've been looking forward to this because I personally loved the series. It was fabulous in my opinion. So we will have some fun discussing this. Before we do, though, a couple of things I do want to hit on because we're recording this December 1st of 2022. And believe it or not, while I was trying to rewatch the finale of Andor, Rix Road, I never could make it through because every few seconds my phone was blowing up with news in the Star Wars universe. And not just Star Wars universe, but the Lucasfilm universe. So I wanted just to touch base on the Star Wars function of that. Of course, everybody knows Bad Batch is coming out in January 4th to be exact. According to IMDb, it'll be a 2-episode premiere. And the next big news, which broke today, was officially confirmed by Lucasfilm on the StarWars.com post that The Mandalorian Season 3 premieres on March 1st. The wait is almost over, y'all. I am stoked. How about you, David?
Yeah, well, that can start March Madness, man. March 1st, but it won't be the won't be the basketball type, but the Star Wars type. Yeah, there was a lot of talk, right, brother, in the Star Wars community about that premiering maybe late February, but now we got confirmation, and I'm just really looking forward to it, particularly after you watch that trailer that anybody can watch on Disney Plus right now. But yeah, Grogu, Mando back, and yeah, you know what they're doing, just putting the finishing touches on special effects probably right now, buddy.
Wait, there was a trailer that went with it?
Well, not today. No.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
Forgive me. Wait.
I was like, wait, I didn't see a trailer. I just saw the post.
Yeah, no, I know. And well, I know I was texting you as soon as I got ding on Twitter. It showed me. No, the one that was shown at a celebration. Then several months later, it was put on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I love watching that. It got me pretty hyped, and now seeing this news adds more to it. You know.
Oh, absolutely! It's going to be. It's fantastic news. It is fantastic news. So that means we'll have back-to-back Star Wars shows coming up with Bad Batch and Mandalorian. And matter of fact, depending on if season 2 of Bad Batch goes anything like season 1, with as in the number of episodes, we could have an overlap. So we could be having 2 Star Wars series going on for a little bit. So
yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. I mean, this is promising. I tell you, it's promising. So, then of course, like I said, Lucasfilm also announced today, and this isn't necessarily Star Wars news. It's more Lucasfilm news. But it got me super stoked was the announcement and the trailer for the 5th installment of Indiana Jones, which will be premiering in theaters June 30th of 23. I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. The new one will be called The Dial of Destiny.
That's cool.
It debuted. The trailer debuted at the Brazil Comic-Con.
Oh, okay.
So that's where a lot of this stuff was coming out of. Shockingly, the Brazil Comic-Con got all the exclusive releases and news. Got the poster for Indiana Jones, release date, the trailer. We got Mando announced. I mean, even Pedro Pascal was at the Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
A lot of awesome news coming out. So we just wanted to get that out to y'all, share it, and so y'all can be as excited as we are.
Nice.
So let's get all that behind us. And now that that's done, let's talk Andor, my friend.
Let's do it. 2 more episodes.
Yep. 2 episodes left. We are discussing the final 2 episodes of Andor. The first, of course, is called The Daughter of Ferrix.
Yeah.
Then the second one called Rix Road. Both of them written by Benjamin Caron directed by Benjamin Caron. I said Carabast. I'm screwing this up already. Holy snikes. All right. Yes. Both of them are directed by Benjamin Caron and written by Tony Gilroy. See, I made it through that one this time. All right. So in this particular 2 episodes, we see Cassian and Melshi finally get off Narkina 5 via the quote-unquote help of the Narkinan aliens who give them a ride to Niamos. In the meantime, we learn that Maarva Andor has passed away and B2 EMO is struggling with the loss, along with Brasso and the Daughters of Ferrix. Imperial agents are spying on Maarva's home as Cinta is for Luthen in order to capture Cassian. Deidre Miro gives the okay for the funeral in order to trap Cassian once and for all. All the big players arrive on Ferrix for the funeral. Deidre Miro, Luthen, Vel, and Cyril are there, and Cassian is there as well. Tensions build as the people of Ferrix conduct the funeral on their terms, in which a larger-than-life hologram of Maarva delivers a moving speech to wake the people from their sleep, and to kind of paraphrase Rebels, lit the spark of rebellion. Cassian, of course, ends up saving Bix from the Imperials, and as everything blows up in the city, and of course ends with Cassian confronting Luthen on his ship as Luthen is trying to make his escape, and there endeth the lesson. All right, so let's kick off our initial reactions. David, my friend, why don't you get us started?
Oh, definitely. These 2 episodes, they did a really good job of tying up season 1 of Andor Andor Carabast.
Were the Ewoks there?
The Ewoks are there. Andor, all these names, right? Rix Road. Is it Bix Road? No, it's not. Okay. No, it does. These last 2 really tied up nicely. This, what do we call it? 5 BBY before, we A New Hope. So it does. They both do a nice job, really nice job. And I have to admit, the tension in the Rix Road episode really felt like it was oozing out of the TV and all over me. I was feeling tense. And I even, I was really pumped by Maarva's speech. There's an old saying that athletes talk about, like you'd run through a brick wall for somebody. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was ready to run through a wall for that lady. Just a great speech as it builds up. I have to admit, I feel for Bix. I didn't really, know how this was going to go for her. But, after she gets interrogated and tortured, really auditorily, right? Not physically, but through what she hears, you just feel for her, and boy, is she not better. They just kind of kept her there over the last several episodes. I feel for Brasso and Pac's son. I should have looked at the closed captioning. He's the one building the bomb at the beginning of the episode of Rix Road. I guess, does Pac die? I guess we don't see him again, right? Pac is the dark-haired guy who gets tortured before Bix gets in there,
Yeah.
So again, not sure what happened to him, but I have to say this. I would say Cassian, really turned a corner, I think, in terms of risking his life to save Bix. Probably prior to that, most of the focus is on just saving his own skin. And I do think, buddy, that, we're really sure to see more development in Cassian, really towards helping others in a bigger cause in season 2. And of course, that's kind of what we've been promised. I am curious to see what happens with Cyril and Deidre. I really, really enjoyed this season, but I still have to say this, and this is something that Aaron has mentioned in previous episodes where we've covered Andor. I still do enjoy Star Wars animation the most at this time. I mean, it's still my favorite. I really enjoyed this, but again, the Tales of the Jedi that Aaron and I covered recently for you guys in 2 separate episodes. If I went back and was going to watch something, I'm going to watch those Ahsoka episodes and the Dooku episodes again, episodes of Clone Wars, Rebels. It's still my favorite. So again, really, really enjoyed it. Star Wars animation is still my favorite.
Very good. Very good. And I got to agree with everything you said, my friend. This was, to me, the perfect ending of the season. It was well worth the wait as they built up through the season to get to this point. If you were complaining out there that there wasn't enough Empire, these last 2 episodes hopefully satisfied you. You should be very happy with them. I loved the action in these episodes. I love the suspense, the intensity, the nail-biting edge of your seat plot and story as it went on. And of course, we got another major monologue in this episode, as we've mentioned a couple times, by Maarva. And one thing I did love that we got to see is just a glimpse of Saw's paranoia in this. Because the Saw we see in Rogue One is very different from what we saw in Rebels and what we saw in Clone Wars. So we got to see where that paranoid Saw begins to come into focus that we see in Rogue One. We also begin to see Cyril's journey for redemption as he gets his message and takes off on his journey. And then it becomes whether questions begins, is it a journey for redemption, or is he on a journey for love? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Then, of course, Mon Mothma's story is just fascinating. Everything she's going through and how she's handling it. It has been incredibly awesome. I just love every moment of these episodes. And for the love, don't get me started on that post-credit scene till it's time to talk about it, because, fantastic. Utterly amazing and perfect. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our talking points here. And of course, the episode, Daughters of Ferrix, actually starts up with with Cassian and Melshi right after they have made their escape from the prison, and they are still on Narkina 5. Hanging from a wall, trying to hide from Imperial fighters as they fly over in search parties. And they end up running into a couple of aliens from Narkina who end up taking him captive, but then kind of releasing them because they're like, you know what? Who cares what the Empire wants? so be it. So they let him go, and end up giving them free passage to Nyamos, where Cassian recovers his hidden box that has all his credits from the Aldani heist, and then of course all of the couple weapons and and of course the manifesto as well. And that's where he finds out that of course he ends up making a call to Ferrix, and that's when he finds out his mother has passed. So let's take a moment here and let's talk about Cassian and Melshi, because they of course played a big part in the opening of the first episode. And of course, we know their relationship extends well into Rogue One, as he is a part of the rebels who are assaulting Scarif. So let's discuss this and how they've pretty much became friends under fire, per se, with their escape. What are your thoughts on their friendship, David, and of course their method of escaping Narcanos, and then their decision to split up?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, how we talk about, we encourage people to have the closed captioning on. Here's an example of where I had the closed captioning on, and I have to tell you, buddy, I still can barely understand what those two Narkina 5 aliens were saying. Usually you can, pick it out pretty quick, but like you said, they kind of give a quick argument. Well, you two were captured by the Empire. They've destroyed our planet, destroyed the water, destroyed the fish. You know what? We'll help you out. And so even if you had closed caption on, you still might not quite get what the two were saying. But towards the end of that episode, Aaron, as you were just mentioning, you see Cassian make the call, and he learns that his mother's passed, and Melshi's saying, hey, we can't let people not know what's going on. And so it's neat to see this. You got both of them who kind of get closer because they've gone through something difficult. A lot of times that will, kind of forge a relationship, right? Going through a fire. But I love Melshi's heart that he's wanting to do that. And you can see Cassian too, that I think he's moving towards it. He's like, yeah, my mom was wanting to really be a part of this rebellion. And here's Melshi saying the same thing as they're standing there looking out at the water. And, I'm glad they have, at least, one person from Rogue One, and I'm glad it's Melshi. So it's neat to see their friendship develop, and of course we see what great things they do on Scarif too.
Oh, absolutely, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because they do have that bond that only something like this would be able to forge. And I wish, hopefully we see him again next season. But this is literally it for this season. This is the last time we see him. So, and they split off and go their own ways. I mean, they have and puts Cassian on his path, which to return home at that point. He is heading home. He's going to attend the funeral. He's bound and determined to do that.
Yeah.
Now, another interesting meetup in this episode as well is between Vel and Clea. Vel crashes it and basically just shows up at Luthen's shop there on Coruscant, looking for Luthen, and end up having a very interesting conversation where she is just trying to find Luthen and let him know that, Cassian's mother has died. And she's like, and it's very interesting how this goes, because Clea is trying to act like she's trying to sell something and show her stuff, where Val is just like, where is he? I need to talk to him. She's not being subtle about anything.
No.
And I like how Clea
Yeah.
Clea says, I love how she puts it. She's like, you are just one face out of many yelling for help.
Mm-hmm.
So you ain't special to me. In a nutshell is what she's saying. Then Vel's like, I gave him Aldani. What have you done for him lately? And really just kind of snippy. And Clea has, I don't have lately, I have always.
Yeah.
Oh, so we got these two people just going at it, trying to outdo each other. And finally she's like, tell me what you know. I'll make sure you get credit for telling us. And this is how she tells him, or how Vel gets the message to Luthen that Cassian's mother died.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which was very interesting. What did you think about their interaction there in the antiquity shop?
Yeah. It's just, they're both powerhouses, right? The actresses that play Clea and Val just do an incredible job. And you know what struck me, buddy, is that there was an interview with Diego Luna and Tony Gilroy, right as they were about to premiere the first episodes in September of Andor, and you hear Diego Luna say, he's just really praising the writing of Tony Gilroy and how it's so layered. Well, I think this is a real example of it, because when you and I first see Clea and we're like, okay, she's working with Luthen, she's in the shop. And then, you see her, I can't remember what episode it was, but she goes and meets Vel there on Coruscant. And you're like, whoa, she's a lot more than a mild-mannered, kind of face that smiles at you when you enter Luthen's antiquity shop. She's a powerhouse. But this really does strike me as that layered writing as we get to know each of these characters more. This is a prime example, I think, of what Diego Luna was talking about. And, it also strikes me, buddy, after seeing Clea interact with a lot of people, including Luthen, I'm sitting there saying, are they equals? Is she the one running this more than Luthen? I don't know. I guess, again, that layered writing makes me want to know more. Where does she stand in comparison to Luthen? Does she have some other Luthens, quote unquote, working like you just mentioned, buddy? Mm-hmm. I've got many faces coming at me. Maybe Luthen's just one of them, and Vel and so on. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this and put it in our notes as talking points because of all the things I just mentioned. And I thought it was a great interaction. What did you think, buddy?
I thought it was a great interaction too, because we got to see different parts of the not only the different parts and some very interesting artifacts in the shop, but we got to see how different people on different sides of the rebellion are. How some people are still trying to play it quiet and close to the vest, and other people just don't care. And how those different points of views collide. They still have the same goal, but there's some friction there.
Yeah.
And I like how that was portrayed in this. Clea is really putting her foot down with, you need to back off. You need to chill. You don't know what you're doing. Essentially, because, she doesn't understand that, the whole place is that they could be under surveillance. She really doesn't know what is going on. And she doesn't understand that for all we know, Vel doesn't understand that Luthen is dealing with other cells. Which, at the time this was happening, Luthen was with Saw Gerrera.
Right.
So we have that different one hand not knowing what the other hand's doing, and the person in the body in between the two hands is running interference.
Right.
So it's very interesting to see these characters interact. Which I do want to talk, since we just mentioned it. Let's talk Saw Gerrera. Luthen, its interaction with Saw, of course, started a couple episodes ago where Luthen mentioned him going to help Krieger on this power station. Saw wasn't committed to it, so nothing came of it. Well, when Luthen shows up at this meeting, Saw's like, just give me the supplies we talked about. Here are my terms. If Krieger agrees, we will supply ships. We will supply men. I'm all in to destroy this power station. Well, of course, by this point, it's too late. He doesn't want Saw to go because he knows it's a trap. He knows ISB, thanks to his mole in ISB, he knows they know Krieger's coming. ISB knows, and they've sprung a trap for Krieger. So, and he was willing to sacrifice Krieger and Krieger's men to keep his mole safe. And he didn't want Saul to go. But when Saul realizes this, Luthen probably has people everywhere. He's got somebody in ISB. He probably has somebody in Krieger's camp spying on Krieger. He must have somebody in his camp spying on him. And we see that paranoia that, we see, you see Saw Gerrera in Rogue One, and he's almost paranoid to a delusional state in that movie, and you're starting in just this one conversation, you see that come literally to life. It is paranoia. Tell me who it is. Tell me who it is. And what does Luthen do? It's tubes.
That was great.
It's tubes. Go ahead, tell him. There's no reason to hide it. Tubes is ready to kill him because he knows it's not true.
Right.
It was a fantastic scene, and it begins to put Saw in that state and journey toward the shell of a man that we see in Rogue One. Yeah, from your point of view, you're the doctor here. Let's talk Saw. We see him literally having a meltdown to a certain extent in this scene. What are your thoughts on Saw's reactions and really his state of mind at this point?
Yeah, I do love, when we talk about good storytelling, linear storytelling, the advantage of having Tony Gilroy do this instead of someone else doing an Andor series is we know how much Tony Gilroy came in and really apparently righted the ship and really got this thing put together, to be the movie it was, Rogue One. And so for him to be able to have the time to write this and show the progression of Saw moving into, I like how you described it. His paranoia was so severe, he's a shell of a man. And I one of the things I thought about is when Jyn Erso walks in there and he's like, "Have you come to kill me?" And of course she's like, "No, I'm here to, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here." But, I don't know, what started, the paranoia for him. I don't know if something happens before we see him here in these episodes. Obviously we're getting little bits and pieces and stuff like that. I love how, this interaction with Luthen really gives us an idea of why, it could be increased. Then I started, you think about it. We just talked about it. Clea is trying to talk in code to Val because, they think they're being listened to. We find out later on that Mon, she really does know that the driver is listening, right? Fortunately, she does know that. I think a lot of people have a lot of reason to have quite a bit of paranoia right now, particularly with what's going on. maybe just to add some humor, I wonder if Saw goes completely bonkers because Borg Gullet attached its tentacles to him one too many times, before we see Borg Gullet in Rogue One, and just mess with his mind. But I will say this. I have worked with clients who have paranoia. In fact, I am working with one currently. He is diagnosed with schizophrenia, and his actually is there's paranoia in there, and it's just a really miserable thing for my client. I don't work with a lot, right? Because a lot of times persons with, and I've talked about this, right, Aaron, on previous psychology corners. It's one thing to work with people who have neuroses, depression and anxiety, compared to psychoses, right? Psychosis and psychoses deal with loss of touch with reality. Neuroses don't necessarily always deal with that, right? You can be depressed or anxious and still be very much in touch with reality. So again, just a little brief snippet there of the psychology corner here midstream, but you wouldn't wish this on your worst enemy, buddy.
No, not at all. You wouldn't. I don't know anybody who would, honestly, that would wish that on anybody. But it's definitely a state that he's going through, and it's not cool. All right, let's shift gear back to Ferrix. I mean, as we know, Maarva has passed, and of course, everybody on Ferrix is sad. She was a pretty important character in the community there, so everybody's kind of feeling her loss, but nobody more than B2 EMO. B2 EMO. He is one down and depressed droid. And he doesn't want to be left alone. He shows a whole range of emotions. He's literally sitting next to the chair, grieving, ignoring everything that's going on. And it's just real heartbreaking to see that. And he doesn't want to leave the house. He wants to stay in the house, and convinces Brasso to stay with him for one night. And he's just totally depressed. Yeah. And again, this is something that Star Wars has always done well, and that is humanizing the droids. They did it with 3PO, R2, Chopper, AP5.
Steven Stanton, yes.
I love Steven Stanton's AP5. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that droid. Not as much Chopper, but I love AP5.
That's right.
They even K2SO, they humanize these droids to a fault, and and they do that again with B2 EMO, and his mourning of Maarva. Yeah. So what with the whole B2 EMO story there, mourning and everything, how did that? I know it made me sad. How'd that make you feel?
Yeah. I'm a psychologist, and I know that this is a droid, and I'm like, wait, why? It's working. It's making me sad. It's breaking my heart. What I was just thinking about, buddy, when you were describing B2, staying there, just waiting, maybe Maarva will come back. And I love Brasso's interactions with B2. This is just great. It struck me, I think back to our coverage of Rebels, and there's a scene, and when I mention this, people will remember it, because Aaron and I talked about how it basically broke us. And it's the scene.
I know what you're talking about.
You know where I'm going. Where Kanan has died, and Hera is standing there in a field on Lothal, and Chopper's hand goes up to hold on to Hera's, and I was crying. Tearing up now as I think about it, because that loss of Kanan still stings, and Hera's experience of that, and Chopper's. I mean, Aaron and I, we love Chop, and you know, it's. I have to say, it's amazing how they do this. Like, I think back to the original, you know, movie, and I'm seeing R2 and C3PO interacting with Luke. And what does Luke say? A young Mark Hamill says, "Man, I've never seen so much devotion in a droid," you know. And here's George Lucas setting the stage for us actually thinking, "Wow, these things can really care about their owners, their masters." And the way this was done was just beautifully done.
Yes, it was. It truly, truly was. And it does set the stage for so much to come in the future, especially with the scene here with B2EMO.
Yeah.
So from B2EMO, let's talk about Mon Mothma, because Mothma is in a bind. She is in trouble. We've known that from the last couple episodes with the missing 400,000 credits that she just can't explain off in her books, because they all went to Luthen to help the rebellion.
Yeah.
And she sits there with Val and explains everything to her, what's going on. And Val keeps asking, does Luthen know? She's like, well, she knows. He knows a little. No, not really. He doesn't know everything. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And she's explaining, you know, I got the banker to help me, but all he did was realize how much more trouble I'm actually in. Things just aren't working out. She goes, but I have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we see her plan in the next episode come to fruition, and it's not the plan I was expecting, because, you know, she almost hinted like she was going to marry off her daughter to this other guy. And so you kind of are thinking, okay, she's going to sell off her daughter for the rebellion. I'm like, it doesn't fit Mon's character, but okay, maybe this is a new aspect to her character we didn't know, but that wasn't the case. She ends up, and we're crossing into the next episode, into Rix Road a little bit, where she ends up framing her husband for the missing credits by accusing him of gambling. Now, this is apparently something he has a history with, and something that he had promised her when they moved to Coruscant, he would not gamble on Coruscant. But she is basically accusing him of gambling and then accusing him of lying about it. And of course, all of this in front of their driver, who is an ISB informant, who of course immediately rushes the ISB and says, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I mean, Mothma's, I'm really loving how they're doing Mon Mothma in this series. What are your feelings on how they're developing her character and her plan to cover herself for her involvement here?
Gosh. Aaron, there's so much here. And I was on the exact same page as you in that episode when she's talking to Val and she says, I found a solution. I have a plan. I thought, oh my gosh, is she, going to do that? And then we bop into the last episode, Rix Road, and she's, flying through Coruscant with her husband. And we realize, this is the plan. And again, I go back to that layered writing that Diego Luna talked about. I'm thinking, it's going to be that, but here's Tony Gilroy kind of sliding it in and saying, no, Mon can do it this way. Now, we do see Mon and her husband with their daughter, is it Lita, meeting with, Davo Skulden? I think that's it, Davo Skulden, and his wife and son. And the thing that he did request, that Davo guy, was not to betroth them, but just an introduction. So what I get a sense is that, again, to develop Mon's character, consistent with what you said, buddy, it's not going to be her wanting to sell off her daughter. She goes ahead and has this introduction. It's a meeting, not that she wants her daughter to do this, but maybe, some stuff happens in season 2 that shows that she clearly doesn't want this to occur for her daughter because she sees what it's done to herself, right, in her marriage to Aaron. But maybe something goes on with her husband. Maybe Davo, does other nefarious things and makes, that happen. But ultimately, I want to come around to your question too of, the development of her. It really goes to show, and we never knew this in 1983 when I first saw Mon Mothma on the big screen. What were the sacrifices she went through? What was the pain and suffering she went through? And I'll tell you, the way that Genevieve O'Reilly portrays this character, she's just in a squeeze. She's in the bind, right, buddy?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. She is in the bind and she is getting squeezed, but she is pushing back. So it is very interesting. So, well, we got a lot more to talk about with these episodes. So we are going to take a quick break. Hang with us. We'll be right back to talk more Andor. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We're discussing the final 2 episodes of Andor, Daughter of Ferrix, and of course, Rix Road. Let's talk about Luthen and his space escape. So, of course, after he leaves Saw Gerrera's encampment in his really awesome ship, he, of course, encounters a Imperial cruiser, Cantwell class, which, of course, has been you've seen the ship in. We've seen the ship in Rebels, haven't we? Pretty sure we have.
Have we seen that one? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have. And so it's not a new design. It's the first time we've seen it in live action, though. So we see the ship, and of course it locks on his tractor beam, and of course Luthen gives him a fake ID code, which they acknowledge. They're like, all right, yeah, cool, it's valid. And the other Imperials like, should we let him go? And the commander's like, nope, let's practice boarding the ship. Let's just practice.
Yeah,
it's probably the worst command decision that officer has ever made. Because that means Luthen takes evasive actions. He launches all these countermeasures, which destroys the front dish of the starship and releases the tractor beam. Then he destroys a couple TIE fighters before jumping into hyperspace and leaving this cruiser, the ship, and basically in its dust. I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed this scene.
Oh, this was BA, man, right? I'll just do the shortened version. Now, I wanted to mention the reason why I put in our notes that this was Cantwell class. I know it's an arrestor. I'm trying to remember, like, when they talk about Star Destroyers are this type of, a class, etc., Super Star Destroyers, etc. But the Cantwell class, the reason why I put that in there is because that's an homage to Colin Cantwell. And I'm sure some of our listeners have seen the pictures of George Lucas meeting with Colin Cantwell, who had done some original designs for the TIE Fighter, X-Wing, and some of the Star Destroyers. And then, of course, I think at the same time or shortly thereafter, he hires Ralph McQuarrie to continue to do that kind of work, but do it, the paintings that we have all ultimately seen that Ralph McQuarrie did. But I have seen the pictures. And so I wanted to mention that. And here's Tony Gilroy, also doing that homage to one of the original kind of concept designers for Star Wars, Colin Cantwell. So, but the scene's incredible, dude. And one of the things I thought was, once he fires that stuff, whatever he shoots out the back of his ship, and it just, like you said, Aaron, shreds the tractor beam or that front a dish, and then he goes bam, and he immediately hits into hyperspace. I just thought, holy mackerel, that was beyond. That was James Bond, or maybe with Tony Gilroy, that was more a Jason Bourne kind of thing, because he's worked on those movies. And I love seeing the guy that you were talking about who said, well, we'll have him go on and practice boarding. He just was shaking his head, and he knows he's going to have to explain this one. But I thought it was one of the coolest scenes ever. It was awesome, man. Just awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And it is the Cantwell class arrestor cruiser is what it's called.
Oh, the Cantwell class.
And I was wrong. It is not in Rebels. It must have been a similar ship. This ship was first seen in live action.
Okay, there you go.
In Solo, a Star Wars story.
Solo. Okay, there you go.
It
okay.
was in when Han goes to the recruitment center to sign up, where he gets where they give him the last name Solo.
Yeah.
The recruitment video that's playing in the background has the cruiser in it.
Holy trivia, Batman. Okay. There you go. There you go, listeners.
So now I'm real curious what that cruiser was in Rebels. I'm going to have to research that later.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so there you go. But this was a fantastic scene. I love how he's joking. He's kind of making excuses with the captain of the cruiser. He's like, this is a one-man show over here. You got to give me a moment. And then, of course, this one-man show takes out the cruiser, a squad of TIE fighters. It makes his escape. That's some one-man show he's got there.
Oh, man. It was just really cool, dude.
It really was. It really was. So I just want to go ahead because we have so much to talk about here with the funeral. I want to go ahead and jump right into the funeral because it is fantastic. And it is it's really moving to see how this works out. Cassian ends up arriving on the planet, meets with Brasso, finds out Bix is being held by the Imperials and says he's going to bust Bix out. And Brasso's like, I'll take care of Maarva. Don't worry about it. And of course, the procession is not supposed to start for a couple hours. Well, guess what? The Daughters of Ferrix kick it off a couple hours early, which of course throws the Empire off their game and ends up making this wonderful procession that marches down the street of this orc. It was very similar to what you would see in New Orleans.
Yes.
With the procession, with the band playing this music, the somber music as they march down the street, and of course they're carrying the brick, which is Maarva, because as they told the story in the series, they basically cremate the body and mix them into a brick and then put the brick somewhere in the city as part of a building, and they literally become Ferrix. So Brasso's carrying Maarva's brick through the city, flanked by this band, and of course this processional is getting larger and larger as it goes, which of course is not making the Imperials happy. And we get down to Rix Road, and they all circle around, and then B2EMO wheels up, projects this massive hologram of Maarva, who literally lights the spark of rebellion there on Ferrix.
Mm-hmm.
Does this fantastic speech, basically talking about how she and the whole planet's been asleep and it's time to wake up and just take it to the Empire. I mean, it's a mind-blowing speech, fantastic writing, fantastic performance. And of course, at that point, things start heated as she goes on and on and on. One of the Imperials comes and throws a tarp over B2MO and knocks him over. It's like, nope, no more. Everybody go home. And of course, at that point, the fighting starts.
Yeah. And
things go insane. We see rocks being thrown, blasters being fired. It's all over the place. Then Pac's son throws his bomb and blows up a speeder and just escalates things to the nth degree. And it becomes really a nightmare for the Imperials because they have lost control of the city.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, well, before we get into what Cassian's doing, let's talk about this. What were your thoughts on this processional and the events that happened there on Rix Road?
Well, like you said, it's incredibly powerful. It gets me, well, like anything, thinking about things on a very deep level. You know, if I let me do this. If I go to show notes, I want to go to something real quick. I'm looking in Twitter, and this person, it's called Mace Awindu. It's a Twitter handle, and the person posted this on November 29th. And it says, while you serve an organization like the Galactic Empire, you cannot call yourself a good person. The only way to do so is to leave the Empire, right? And I was going to respond to this, this tweet, because, this is what you and I have talked about before. This is what we talked about when we were covering Count Dooku. And this issue of, is there right or wrong? Is there relativism? Is there an ultimate right? And when I think about Maarva and I think about her speech, you have to sit there and say to yourself, just like this person who tweeted, that the Galactic Empire is not good. And if you're part of it, you're not good, right? You need to get out of it. And so if you want to go with relativism, I thought about this, Aaron. If, everybody's truth is truth, then guess what? Maarva's speech doesn't mean a whole lot, because you and I could stand there and say, okay, you're saying they're bad? I like the order that they give, in fact, But if you understand on a deep level that there isn't relativism, like I thought about it, speech is based on, Tony Gilroy might not be thinking about it at all, but for her to criticize the Empire and for us to be like, heck yes, and the people, are going to rebel up against these people, is you have to know that they're wrong, and they're not good. And just like this, again, this person tweeted, while you serve an organization like the Galactic Empire, you cannot call yourself a good person. And Maarva's a good person, and she's saying the right things, and there is right or wrong. And I believe that, and that's why that speech means more. But if I looked at things, Aaron, from a point of relativism, that's what the world wants to say, then how do you get excited about a talk like that, right?
Exactly.
It's relativism, But because, I don't believe in relativism, I believe that there's right and wrong. I believe the Empire is wrong, and I believe that Maarva and Cassian and Brasso and B2 and all these people in Ferrix, they're good people. They're trying to do the right thing. And Pac's son is trying to do the right thing and get this oppression off of them. Then, it means the world to me. And that's why, I teared up watching her speech and was pumped when, right, I'm stealing this from another podcast, you actually see Maarva in the fight. When her brick, Brasso uses her brick, she's in the fight.
Yeah.
Even from the grave, she's in the fight. And I love it.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic how they did that, because she keeps her right involved in the mix. She's participating in the fight that she wanted to get started, that she wanted to start, and is right there in literally in the mix of things.
Yeah.
So, and that wasn't a bad dad pun either. I wasn't going for that, but
yeah,
in the mix of things. But, it made a difference and an impact on the community, and really started something that gave Cassian the opportunity to rescue Bix, which, while this is all going on, he is infiltrating the hotel where the Empire is holed up, runs into the cook who he knows and tells him exactly where to find Bix. He goes in, and of course Bix is, in a psychological trauma state. She is, shut down, Cassian comes in, and she looks up, and obviously she's had visions of him coming to rescue him before, and it's just been dreams. She's like, yeah, I've known you were going to, she's like, yeah, you've come before. And it just, it's sad to see her in that state, not realizing this is for real at this point.
Yeah.
And Cassian's trying to snap her out of it and get her out, and is working hard to get that done throughout the fighting before the Imperials can get back to the hotel and take over and stop. And because he's the one they're hunting for, and he's literally in their in their office building.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of the whole scene where Andor was trying to get Bix out of the building when he first got there, with her state and him trying to help her and bring her into, I mean, pretty much bring her back into reality?
Well, if you think about it, man, oh man, this is tough, because if you're Cassian, now again, Bix can take a stance. I don't want to interact with you, Cassian. I'm not going to get in a type of business relationship with Luthen. But because she's in relationship with Cassian and Luthen, she ends up traumatized. Again, here's PTSD coverage. I've covered that in previous psychology corners. She is severely traumatized and damaged here, and I don't think we'll ever see her back to what she was before. It's incredibly sad. I think, Cassian does such a good job of putting her at ease, not rushing her, but rushing her, right? Because we got to get out of here. Mm-hmm. I'm thankful he comes back and does the right thing and gets her out of there, because she would have been stuck there forever. But it kind of reminds me of the Death Star end credit scene, and we can talk about that in a little bit. I kind of feel the same way, about this situation for Maarva. It's like you're in a relationship with these people, and you contribute to your own, problems, and it's hard, right? But you can't sleep and not deal against the Empire. But boy, oh boy, I feel for her, just like I do for Cassian and the crew on Scarif, but particularly Cassian. Now that we've learned what those things were that they were making on Narkina 5, that you're like, oh my, what irony, you try, you end up getting killed by a machine that you contributed to. Not that Cassian knew that, not that he wanted that, So there, I guess what I'm trying to say, buddy, and I don't feel like I'm doing a very good job, is it's just tragic on all levels for Bix, for Cassian, but maybe ultimately, well, going back to what I said, who's ultimately to blame for all this? The Empire.
Yeah. Ultimately, absolutely, yeah. And I was trying to figure out that very question you mentioned, whether she'll ever get back to normal, and chances are she won't. And the one thing, I seeing her, the way she was acting and everything, the one thing I kept going back to is Gregor.
Oh man, yes, Gregor, yes,
because
he's never the same. He's never the same.
He was not. He's never been the same. We see this put together clone commando in the Clone Wars, and then we see the shell of a man who's lost his mind because of all the trauma and all of the stuff he's gone through in Rebels. So I see her, and I see her on a path similar to that of Gregor.
Wow.
And that's troubling.
That is a great comparison. I total credit you. I didn't even think about it, buddy. But once you said Gregor, I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Absolutely traumatized in that scene. Yeah, on what is that planet's name? I'm blocking on it, but just so beautifully shot. and we didn't know at the time what had happened to Gregor, but a traumatizing war situation. And like you said, when we see him reintroduced in Rebels, season 2, right? And then
Yeah.
He's never
Lost
the same.
Commanders.
Yeah, the Lost Commanders. There you go.
Actually, season 3.
Oh, was it season 3?
Season 3, because season 2 ended with Twilight of the Apprentice.
Okay.
Or was it? No, it was season 2. I apologize. You're right. Sorry, it is season 2. Lost Commanders was season 2.
Okay. Yep. Beginning of season 2 there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were right. I was Care Best. So
great example. I'm curious to see in season 2 how Tony Gilroy wants to approach this with Bix, how much we see her, and how much. I bet you, because just the way he writes, that she's not going to be fully back. She's going to have issues, which is more compelling storytelling.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be more compelling, and it will be more. It makes it more lifelike.
Right.
Yeah, because unfortunately, there are people that go through trauma every day. You above all people, David, know there are people dealing with trauma like this every day, and they just never recover, unfortunately. And or if they do recover, they never fully recover and carry the weight of their experience with them forever. And this just makes it more real, not only to see it on the screen, but for these other people people going through this trauma, to see somebody else going through it on the big screen. And if it could possibly even encourage or even give people hope that especially depending on what happens with her story, that something good could come out of it. So,
yeah, well said.
But we'll see. So let's talk a minute here, because in the melee of the fight on Ferrix, Deidre Marrow gets in the mix of the fight and ends up getting knocked down, losing her blaster, and she is literally fighting for her life and is literally about to lose it when she is rescued by Cyril, our good man Cyril.
Yeah.
Who is there, of course, because he found out Cassian's mother died, and he was hoping Cassian would show up so he could, redeem himself. And he's now, of course, more pursuing Deidre than he is Andor at this moment. And he ends up rescuing her. And since he is in civilian clothes, he grabs a blaster, points it at her back, and acts like he's leading her away, and ends up taking her into a building to hide. And it's kind of a unique scene there, because you don't know what's really going through everybody's mind. She's obviously in shock based on everything that's happened. She's shocked to see Cyril. It's just, she's in shock, and he's basically standing there with this look on his face. I mean, he's like, I rescued you, huh? And it's a unique situation. It's kind of hard to tell what angle they're trying to play with these two and their relationship. Because at first you thought it was just going to be a hard, she was just going to exploit him for whatever information he had and just use him to get to Andor. But after this scene, it's kind of like, okay, what is the angle here? Because you have almost an intimate moment at that point between the two. I mean, it's just kind of, the scene ends with them just kind of pretty much standing there very close, just kind of looking at each other, and he's staring in her eyes and she's just staring at him, dumbfounded in shock. It's like, okay.
Right. Well,
what do you think about these two?
Yes, some thoughts. You know how when you see people talking about a movie, whether it's the biggest actors, the biggest stars, whoever they are, they're asked questions by the media at these press junkets, and basically what they have to say is, I can't say anything, right, because of an NDA, all the NDAs. And they basically say, I'm just really excited for you to see it. You see it with, they're interviewing, Christian Slater about his role in Willow, which premiered last night. And he's just, ultimately says, I'm just really excited for everyone to see what comes about. And I get why they have to say it. After a while, I'm like, I don't even know why you do the press junkets, because you can't say anything. Whether you're right, if you're Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen for Obi-Wan, you go back to if you interview Ming-Na Wen or who plays Boba Fett?
Tamara Morrison.
Tim. You can't say anything. You just kind of have to stand there, smile, and just say, "Hey, please watch my show." Now, here's what's interesting, brother. Coming back around to Cyril and Deidre. Back in, it would have been what? Maybe July, August, I think. August. And I think it was Skywalking Through Neverland. There were several podcasts that were invited to do interviews with Diego Luna, with some of these different cast members. And I think it was Skywalking Through Neverland along with several other podcasts. They got to talk, and for some reason, right, they packaged the two actors who played Cyril Karn and Deidre Merrill in that interview.
Yeah.
And unlike everybody else, including, Harrison Ford at D23 saying, hey, with Indy 5, it's going to knock your socks off. Come watch it June 30th. These two hint at this kind of messed up, evil love relationship. So like I knew it was going to go either this season or next season somewhere like that. Not fully clear what it is, but they both, and now I don't know if they got in trouble for saying that, right?
Yeah.
But they're one of the only ones who really revealed something about their characters. Like I liked it. I don't feel like it really spoiled a whole lot, but it really was. They're like one of the only two who did it, and it came about in this last episode of the season. Now I don't know if you heard that interview with those two actors, but I'm going to go back and listen to it, and they hint at this very, very thing, this really awkward, messed up, two unhealthy people like each other.
Yeah.
So okay, I said a lot there, but anyway.
Oh, you're fine. You're perfect.
Yeah,
you're perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I was, my thoughts are confused on them because it didn't go the way I thought it would go with them. So I was kind of lost I'm like, okay, are we going to have one of these? And I forget how it goes, but the name of the syndrome, but where basically she got rescued by him, and all of a sudden it's going to be one of these, oh my gosh, he rescued me, I love him type situations, or what's going to happen, especially with the state of mind that she was obviously in at the last moment we saw her. It kind of threw me for a loop. I didn't expect that kind of meltdown for her.
Yeah.
They had done so well building her up as a confident, competent ISB up and coming agent, to have her pretty much collapse under pressure in this scene kind of threw me for a loop. So I'm still not sure where I'm going, where my train of thought's going for these two. I need more.
Yeah, I think it might be enough that he rescues her that might put her over the edge to be like, okay, yes, you can be part of ISB, because when he confronts her, really he's stalking her in front of the ISB headquarters on Coruscant, she takes offense to it and says, look, I could have you arrested and all this stuff. So she's not really going for it then, but with him saving her saving her Ferrix, I wonder if that might be the extent of it. Okay, you did this. We can be in cahoots. I have my right-hand guy already, right? Seen that guy. I think his name's Hertz or something like that. I'll have one more. You can go do some of my bidding here on these different planets. And so I think, two unhealthy people, just like there was incredibly unhealthy people within the Nazi party that worked together, they're both unhealthy people who will probably be working together. They might not go anywhere further with romance with them, but Tony Gilroy, I guess he's got the flexibility to go any place he wants with that.
Oh, absolutely, he does, and I'm sure he will. I'm just interested to see where he's going to go with them, because it's very, it's just very interesting. I'm just not sure where. I had this idea where I thought their story was going to go, and it just got obliterated. So it is lying in pieces across the desert of Ferrix, just like the Razor Crest.
Oh, jeez. Oh gosh, the Razor Crest is on Tython, right?
Yes. So it's laying in pieces on Tython, and that's pretty much how my train of thought is for how their relationship was going to go. So I need to figure that out. So
yeah.
So let's wrap things up here with of course the final scene there with Cassian facing off with Luthen. Before the fight started, he spotted Luthen in the crowd, and Cassian knew what he was there for. Cassian knew he was there for him. And the fight broke out. Everything happened. Cassian gets everybody off of Ferrix on board a ship, and then he goes after Luthen and beats Luthen out to his ship, and basically they have a standoff. He basically gives Luthen his gun and says, "You're here to kill me, shoot me. I don't care. Everything's done for me. Do it." And Luthen's holding the gun, trying to figure out what he wants to do, because his whole goal was to kill Cassian. And then Cassian's like, "Or you can use me."
Yeah.
And then talk about throwing a wrench in your plans. But it looks like this whole season was the build up to Cassian willingly joining the rebellion.
It really does.
It really was. It really was. Yeah. And that's literally how the series ends. Those were the last words spoken, and they're left staring at each other on board the ship when the credits start rolling. It's insane.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on their standoff and on their final encounter?
Yeah, I think ultimately Luthen's looking at him. He had a smirk when he was listening to a good one, Maarva's speech. And then he smirks when he's talking to Andor. And I think what it is, this is me, everyone can have their own interpretation. He's like, here's a guy who did the Aldani heist. Now on Ferrix, he's seen the people that Andor loves rise up against the Empire. He knows what Andor's mother's about. And ultimately, I think Luthen is looking at him, Aaron, as he's an asset. You got to have as many as you possibly can. You're getting guys killed off like what was it, Krieger? Andor, I don't know, whatever, Krieger. We know he's killed his guys, 30 guys, right? And you need as many as you can get. And that's my sense, is that it really comes around. His experience there on Ferrix is, you know what? Andor is, he's an asset, and I need him, and the whole rebellion needs him.
Absolutely. He sure does. And I like that. Well said. So perfect. Well, with that, there's only one other thing to talk about and that is that pesky post-credit scene.
Oh.
You talk about the one question that was on the back of everybody's mind that nobody really realized was on the back of their mind was, what were they building inside that prison?
Yeah.
Those six-spoked wheels. What were those for?
Yeah.
Well, the post-credit scene told us Cassian Andor and his fellow prisoners were building the laser dish for the Death Star.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that? How about that? I'll tell you, when the credits started rolling, normally for Disney Plus, it normally shrinks down and tells you what's coming, what else you can watch that's related to it. It didn't do that, and I got a button that said skip credits. I'm like, oh really? Skip credits, because I know that's what they do on the Marvel movies. You can skip the credits to get to the mid and post credit scenes. Like, oh, interesting. Clicked it, and all of a sudden it comes up, and I'm like, okay, what do we got going on here? And I'm see the wheel. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'll go and tell you, my theory was it was the, if you look at the side wing of a TIE fighter, it has that circle and that six-spoke thing in the center. That's what I was thinking it was for. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And it starts backing up, and you see all these little droids putting these in place, and it's getting bigger and bigger as it zooms out. And then I see this giant piece kind of sitting there, no real shape. Then as it backs out further, you start to see, okay, that looks kind of like a circle. Oh, it's a dish. And all of a sudden it backs out further, and all of a sudden there's the freaking Death Star.
Yeah. Wow.
You're like, oh my goodness. Talk about, but here's my thing though. I'm wondering where that was set, what time frame that final scene was set in, because in Rogue One,
right,
the dish is complete and it's putting. You're telling me it take them 5 years to build the dish?
Right. That was my question. I because we see it's. I'm looking at the setup and the scene they show, and I thought, wow, this must be closer to Rogue One, not right now. And it had to
have jumped several years.
I agree
for that post-credit scene, but they showed us what they were building, what that was for. It's that's something that I always wondered what it was for, but it wasn't a big deal, honestly. But I'm very impressed they showed us.
Yeah.
So.
Me too. And for me, the word is just the irony. Well, two words: irony and tragedy.
Oh, absolutely.
That when they do the test shot on Scarif, and it kills Cassian, and it's just heartbreaking. Again, is that evil? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's another example. Evil does that. The Nazis did this in concentration camps. Mm-hmm. Dig your own grave, and then we shoot you, and you fall in the grave, and we cover you up. Yep. That's what I think about with all this, buddy. I really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I do think I'm thinking about it a little bit more because earlier this year in March, and I think I've shared it with you, maybe not our listeners, but my son went to Europe for the first time ever, and part of their trip was they went to Krakow, Poland, and they went to Auschwitz. And yeah, and I'm really glad that him and his classmates got to go there. And Narkina 5 and this end credit scene makes me think about Auschwitz. It makes me think of that. And listen, we know that Tony Gilroy is a big historian. He's talked about it. I've heard several clips of his interviews. He's a big reader of history and revolutions and and all these and wars. So he's pulling from all this stuff. But anyways, that's what I think about when I see some of these scenes, particularly that Death Star scene at the end. Yeah.
Very good. Very cool. Very good. So, All right. Well, we are almost done here. We're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we'll do our final reactions, our psychology corner, and close everything out with this week's Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We are closing out our discussion on the final 2 episodes of Andor. We've had a great discussion, and we just want to go into our final thoughts. Since David, you kicked off the initial thoughts, I will kick off our final thoughts. For me, this series was so full of awesomeness. I enjoyed this entire season. I know a lot of people didn't. I know a lot of my friends didn't, and that's fine. I respect that. But I have been sold on this series since day one, and it was fantastic for me. I enjoyed the episodes. The build up to the finale was well done. The finale was just fantastic. It's got some of the best character development in this series that I've seen, honestly, since Rebels. And I loved it. I love every moment of it. And I'm so excited for season 2. It's not even funny. But I love the symbolism in this, and how we have the multifaceted stories just kind of interweaving and so forth. It's all multi-layered. But yeah, there's one thing I didn't mention it earlier because I was kind of saving it for my final thoughts. But there's one scene in Daughter of Ferrix. Once Melshi and Andor go their own ways, and Andor's pretty much standing there on his own. He's just found out his mother's dead, and he's just kind of staring there off into the horizon. He's on the beach, staring at the waves coming in, looking at the horizon. He's starting his career with the rebellion the same way it ends.
Whoa.
On a beach, looking at the horizon.
Whoa, dude. Whoa.
To me, that is the epitome of symbolism for this character.
Mm.
And that is why I love this series so much.
Wow.
There endeth my thoughts. David?
I'll tell you this, brother. I try to listen to as many Star Wars podcasts as I can, and I've heard a lot of coverage of these. Coverage of all these episodes from several different podcasts, and none of them, and I did not pick up on that. On that symbolism of him starting his career in the rebellion right there, looking at the water, and then of course he's with Jyn Erso. Mm-hmm. Right there, looking at the water when it ends. Well said, brother. All right, okay. Well, I can't top that, anybody, but I will give my final reactions. Look, and I said it in my initial reactions, I really enjoyed this first season of Andor, absolutely. And just like Aaron said, if we can trust any of the numbers that I've heard other podcasts talk about, a lot of people didn't watch this. I get a sense from other podcasts that they got a feeling that people were waiting for all 12 episodes to wrap and then just watch them straight through. And I hope that's the case. I hope people do watch this, but I don't think people watched it as much as, Kenobi this year or earlier Boba Fett at the beginning of the year. But we'll see what happens when it's all said and done. People can stream it whenever they want. But just like Aaron said, I know people and little to no interest in this series. But consistent with Aaron, I very much enjoyed it. And I just thought it was outstanding. A good sign of whether I enjoyed something is if I'm looking forward to more. I am. I'm just like Aaron said, I'm looking forward to season 2. And how will they cover those 4 years? Right? We started 5 years. Now we're going to go 4 years on, and we're going to, and right, we've said it. Tony Gilroy said it. He's going to run it right up to Cassian. On the rings of Caffrine at the start of Rogue One. So that'll be really cool. And I would say, just great job overall by everyone involved, actors, producers, writers. It's just directors, incredible. Set makers, whoever made that Ferrix set, that's incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah, kudos, and great season 1.
Excellent. Well said. And of course, we grade everything we review. Just like if you were getting a grade in school, we use the same grading scale: A, B, C, D, and or F. I don't know why I always say and or F, because it's either A, B, C, D, or an F. It's not going to be I'm going to give it an AF. I don't know why that just hit me as strange. But anyway, we're grading it A, B, C, D, or F. For me, flat out A+. I loved this series. I loved these episodes. Like I said, hands down, A+ on these final 2 episodes. How about you, brother?
Yeah, I initially had an A+, but I started thinking about it more. And I went back to what you and I talked about, that, in fact, I even went back to our show notes for the 2 different episodes that Aaron and I did to cover the Ahsoka arc of Tales of the Jedi, as well as the Dooku arc of Tales of the Jedi. And I really thought those were both A+. And I thought, again, I like the animation more right now. So I gave an A, because I thought I do like them more. So it should probably be, again, I just said great job, an A. I think just even beyond that, A+ for the Tales of the Jedi, and of course, season 7 of the Clone Wars and Rebels that you hear Aaron and I talk about. So that's why I kind of went back and modified it a little bit to an A. So I just kind of wanted to explain why I have it there instead of an A+.
Very good. Awesome. Well, we want to hear what you think of Andor, the final episodes and the season as a whole. You can, of course, let us know on any of our social media. Of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, and of course on Instagram and Pinterest at SW Reactions. And of course, you can always email us, swreactions@gmail.com as well. Hit us up there. Let us know what you think. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So with that, David, it's time for your psychology corner.
That's right. Let me jump right into it, get people through this. People know, if they've been listening to previous episodes, I've really kind of been doing a series of psychology corners on cognitive distortions that lead to depression and anxiety. And so I've been trying to cover 2 per episode. And in this psychology corner, I will cover 2 more. The 2 that I'm going to cover in this one they're called jumping to conclusions and magnification and minimization. So let's explain these, okay? Just like I have in previous episodes. You can tell that you or others are jumping to conclusions when you assume something negative when there's actually no evidence to support it, okay? So there are 2 different subtypes of jumping to conclusions. One is mind reading, and here we assume the intentions of others. I see people doing, he wants to hurt me, she wants to hurt me, they're out to hurt me. You start to hint towards paranoia. Here's Saw, right? So one is mind reading, and I'll address this, and then we'll talk about another subtype, okay, of this type of cognitive distortion. But to address mind reading, you need to let go of your need for approval. Also, you want to ask yourself, how do you know that? Right? How do you know that, you're thinking the person's going to do this? You're trying to read their mind. None of us can do that. Another thing is to check out supporting facts with an open mind and ask, what evidence do you have to support your notion that he or she feels, ... Or ask yourself, what other conclusion might this evidence support? Again, this is the challenging of thoughts. This is Socratic reasoning. This is the core of cognitive behavioral therapy, okay? Now, listen, another type of jumping to conclusions is fortune telling, right? One was mind reading, one is fortune telling. And we know that this occurs when we anticipate that things will turn out badly, Okay. We feel that our prediction is an already established fact. Oh, the worst is going to happen. Well, it's not an already established fact. So to address this subtype, you want to ask yourself, quote, how do you know it will turn out that way, unquote. Also ask yourself, quote, how does this conclusion serve me, unquote, right? Another great question to ask yourself is this. Imagine 5 years from now, will this matter? Okay, that's a big one I've been using for myself as well to really help, with frustrations. Hey, Dave, talking to myself, will this matter 5 years from now? And many times it doesn't. Okay. Now, there's where we just went over one type of cognitive distortion, which is jumping to conclusions. We went over two different subtypes, mind reading and fortune telling. Now, the second cognitive distortion I want to cover tonight is called magnification minimization. We know this is occurring when you or others are exaggerating negatives and understating positives. Okay. On the flip side, we tend to exaggerate the positives and underestimate the negatives in others. All right. That's not, unfortunately, uncommon. I wish it was uncommon, but we tend to do this. All right. So look, there's one subtype of this cognitive distortion. It's called catastrophizing. This occurs when you focus on the worst possible outcome or thinking a situation is unbearable or impossible when it is most likely uncomfortable. Okay. To address this subtype, just, simply ask yourself, quote, what would happen if the worst possible outcome actually happened, unquote. And a lot of times, and I have talked about this, I believe, in previous psychology corners, I talk about the concept of playing out the anxiety, which is a process of talking to clients about, what would you do if the worst possible thing happened? And then typically what people come up with are different ideas and solutions, whereas anxiety typically wants us to stop, Aaron, and not think that through. So again, all of this is to work and help people challenge their thoughts and dissipate these types of thoughts. Why? To decrease depression and anxiety. And that's been the whole goal of going through all these cognitive distortions. Okay. Now, in the next psychology corner, I will cover two more cognitive distortions. One is called emotional reasoning, and the other one is called shoulding, right? Like in terms of I should have done this, etc. I'll explain more on that the next time we have our psychology corner. But again, we're continuing the process, going in a linear fashion. Please, I would encourage our listeners to go back, listen at your leisure and see what I've said about other cognitive distortions and how to address them. So there's tonight's installment of the psychology corner, my brother.
Very good. Very good. So quick question. So fortune telling, would that cover, I have a bad feeling about this?
Yes, that is acceptable because our favorite Star Wars characters say it. And but yeah, expecting the worst possible outcome, right? I got to
exactly
about this. Yeah.
All right. Well done, my friend. Well done. Of course, if somebody has questions for you about your psychology corner or about Andor and Star Wars in general, how would they go about asking you about that?
Absolutely, brother. Two different ways. The most efficient way to do it would be to go through Twitter. My address there is @David_Modders, Modders. There is an S at the end. Fire off a text, a question, or direct message, whatever. And then the other one is Instagram. Just look my name up, and there I will be.
Very good. Very good. So if you want to talk Star Wars with me, the best way to do that is, of course, by hitting me up on Twitter, TA Harris 121079. That's the best way. I'd love to hear from you. So with that, David, you know what that means, don't you?
I've been prepping all day for this.
It is time for today's Star Wars Dad Joke of the Week. Are you ready?
I am ready. I've been prepping all day.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. All right, here we go. What do you call a redneck Star Wars fan?
I do not know. What do you call a redneck Star Wars fan?
Boba Fett.
Oh, that is brutal.
Boba Fett.
Oh my God.
Oh, Lord.
Where do you ever tell your wife these? She probably would just like.
She really wouldn't care. She just look at me like, okay, and walk away.
My wife would too.
Oh, Lord. Yes. Boba Fett.
That was a good one. I actually really like that one.
All right. Well, David, my friend, this has been fun as usual.
Absolutely, buddy.
All right. Well, everybody, we thank you for listening in this week. We appreciate each and every one of you for taking your time and spending it with us. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are special. Never forget how special each and every one of you are. As I know, as we're going into the end of the year, stresses go up, but just remember, y'all are awesome. Y'all are special. We love y'all. We're praying for y'all. Be kind to somebody, and remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
If you'd like to share your thoughts, you can email us at show@starwarsreactions.com for our show notes and the latest news from the Star Wars universe. Visit our website at www.starwarsreactions.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWReactionsPod or on Facebook at Star Wars Reactions. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on iTunes. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.